Hello, and welcome to Geek Must Have. This is a surplus video. The geek is lucky to have a large university nearby, and this university has a large surplus center where I have spent far too much time and far too much money at picking up things that I thought that I was going to either include in an incredible project or tear it apart for some of the cool components that were inside of it. I had a surplus addiction, but now after 13 steps I've recovered and I'm going through all the stuff I have, and this is some of it. It is 2 lenses. Now, the university has 3 PBS TV stations, and I think the TV stations policy is if something gets damaged, they replace it rather than attempt to try and fix it. So we're going to take a look at these lenses, and lenses tend to have a lot of numbers on them that are kind of complicated, and I'll kind of describe what those numbers mean. The first lens is the Cosmacar lens. It's a made in Japan lens, and it has a 25 mm on there, which indicates the focal length. And the focal length is the distance from the focal point inside of this lens to the back of the camera. In this case, our camera has a CMOS sensor on it, which is kind of like the electronic film. The smaller the focal length, so the smaller this number is, the further away stuff looks in the video when you take it. Now, some of the lenses have fixed focal lengths on it, like this one is 25 millimeters, and others have variable focal lengths on them, let's say from 17 to 90 millimeters. Those ones that have adjustable are called zoom lenses. Now, the focal length also affects what they call the field of view, or how wide the video is that you can take. The more stuff you can take in. The larger the number in the focal length, the narrower the field of view. And that kind of makes sense. If you have a small number, you're taking a wide picture of, like, say, all 20 people. And if you make the focal length higher and you zoom in, that field of view gets narrower and narrower. Instead of 20 people, you get 10, then you get 5, then you get 1. The other number on this lens is this 1:19. That's also known as the f-stop or the aperture, and that number is the minimum aperture setting for the lens. Now, it's a measure of how much light the lens actually lets in. Lower values like f1.9 and f2 let in more light, and higher values like 4 and 8 let in less light. So some lenses have variable f-stops on them, and there's a scale, and the scale shows 1.9, 2, 2.8, 4, 5, 6, 8, 11, 16, and 22. Beyond 22, there's darkness. There's a reason for those particular numbers, but this video isn't the place for that particular discussion. The other thing the f-stop affects is a thing called the depth of field. Now, think of the depth of field as to which things in the video are in focus. A shallow value means only those things that are up front, like the people standing, are in focus. The things that are further back, like the trees and the mountains and whatever, wouldn't be in focus. Deeper field of view means that both the people in the front of the shot and the mountains and the trees and the stuff in the background would both be in focus at the same time. The smaller the f-stop, or the aperture, the more shallow the depth of the field is. So that means if you have a small f-stop, that means only the things close up are going to be in focus. A higher f-stop means you get everything. Those things in the distance, in middle, and up close are in focus. There's also a focus distance, and you'll see on this, right there it says 0.06 or 2. It's 0.06 meters or 2 feet. And then it goes up to 3 feet and 1.2 meters and 4 feet. And then it goes up to 5 meters and 15 feet. And then to infinity, I have to do this, to infinity and beyond. All right. So this indicates, for the focus distance, it indicates what distance the lens will focus to. And it's kind of like your focus ring. It means that when you're set at that particular focus, that something that's at that distance should be in focus. This was one of the problem areas when I tried to use these lenses, that I had a hard time getting that to be accurate. All right, that's the small lens. The bigger lens, the second lens, the big lens, as I call it, is a Canon lens. And if we go take a close look at it, it's a Canon lens. And it is a TV zoom lens, V6x16. It has a focal length of 6.5 to 95 millimeters. That means it's a zoom lens. It has an aperture of 1.2, or its f-stop of 1.2. It also has the focus ring on it goes from 1.5 meters or 5 feet all the way up to 15 meters or 50 feet, and of course infinity. Here is where the f-stop is set, and as you can see there's a 16.5 and 25 millimeters, 50 millimeters, and then 95 millimeters. So that's how the zoom is done. And the zoom is handled with this little lever right here, which is a typical type of zoom lens. And then there's also the aperture settings. And the aperture settings are 2 and 2, 8 and 4, 5, 6, 8, 11, 16, 22, and then darkness or closed. So the two lenses have a lot of similarities. One is a fixed lens, probably used for headshots in the TV studio, and this one was probably used on a field camera that was used to do zoom-in shots for news stories or whatever. The reason why this big lens was at the surplus center is here on the shield, you can see some scorch marks, probably from it being too close to one of the lights. That's why this lens ended up in the surplus center and ultimately in my lab. So all I needed to be able to test these lenses was a C-mount camera. And guess what I didn't have? A C-mount camera. So I went online and I purchased one, and it looks like this. It's fairly small. It's 40 or 50 millimeters square, and it's about 40 millimeters deep. Comes with a standard USB jack on the back, and you use a standard USB cable and you plug it in and use it just like a webcam. Also has a little threaded bottom down here so you can hook it up to tripods, mounts, or whatever. When I first attempted to connect the two of these together like this, no matter what I did, I couldn't get the focus at any distance. It didn't matter. It was like you had blurry vision. The camera had cataracts. Well, I fiddled with it a little bit and determined that the lens needed to be a small distance away from the actual camera mount. In other words, the lens was too short. So I went online and found out that they do make extensions for these that are called C-mount extensions. These are kind of what they look like. Because I didn't know how many I was going to need to get the focus right, I bought 3 of them. But in playing around, I found out I only really needed one of these focus rings, one of these adapter extensions. So, by screwing the adapter extension onto the camera, these are made out of metal, very well constructed, and I'll have a little blurb on both the camera and the adapters at the end of this video. And then screwing the camera to the lens, I was able to plug the USB end of this in and use a webcam program on either a PC using Windows or Linux or the Macintosh and get the video. So where did the camera come from? Well, like most things I buy, they came from AliExpress. And this came from the Lucky Zoom Shop Professional Microscope. I really do love these names. It's a 5 megapixel USB CMOS camera. It has a C-mount lens on it, so it's threaded for a C-mount lens to kind of match the lenses that I have. And it says high resolution. Now, I have a hard time believing that it's high resolution. It's not bad. I would call it medium resolution. The picture now shows it being attached with a little extension tube that comes with the camera. That's what the extension tube looks like right there. And you can have it and mount it on a microscope. And I will be mounting it on a telescope, but I'm not really confident on how this will actually collect light in a telescope. Might be good for moonshots. Who knows? It shows here as $59.99. When I ordered it, I got it for $45 and some change. And it came from these folks, and they do a very good job. And the other part of this video also came from AliExpress. That was the macro extension tube for the C-ring mount. And C-rings are 24.5 millimeters. And this came from DSLR Kit Photography and Network Equipment Online. And they were $4.76 a piece, and I got 3 of them because I didn't know how many I was going to need. I'm glad I did, because I ended up using a couple of them. I also found out that I could hook this big honkin' lens and camera up to my cell phone by using an adapter. And the adapter adapted from a standard USB to a on-the-go plug, which would plug into the cell phone. Now I use an Android cell phone, and so I could use this as the replacement camera for the camera in my phone. The only problem is this is a 2 megapixel camera, this body right here, while the camera in my cell phone is a 16 megapixel. Truly high resolution. Not the high resolution that this 2 megabyte camera claims to be. This is the very large telephoto lens attached to the USB camera, and I'm recording. I apologize for the logo in the center of the screen. The software I'm using insists on having that. But this is what the camera looks like at its minimum optical zoom, and now I'll slowly zoom. It's open all the way. And now I'll start dialing it down one notch at a time until I get to closed. Closed. No light. Open it back up slowly. Zoom in one more time. And zoom back out again. And now this is the small Cosmicar TV studio lens mounted on the USB camera. And I'm focused on the same object. There is no zoom on this, but there is a focus. And if we play with focus, let's see what happens. And when we play with the aperture, open it up all the way. The camera adjust. Start to dim it down. So that's the aperture settings. Now this is my regular cell camera from my Samsung S7. And I'm filming the same scene. There it is, zoomed all the way in. And then I'll slowly zoom in until I get to the maximum, which is 8 power on the cell phone. To give you an idea, it focuses automatically. It takes care of the aperture setting to make certain there's enough light. The technology in our camera is far superior to the technology from the old TV lenses. But you have to admit the TV lenses do look kind of cool. So zoom back out until I'm back to 1 power. Well, the summary here is that the 5 megapixel USB camera that I purchased on AliExpress really can't compete with the technology in the cell phone of the 12 megapixel camera. And while playing with these lenses and the camera during the evening, I noticed that often there was insufficient light to get an accurate image, where the cell phone camera seemed to be able to get an image without a problem. Now, these weren't meant to be replacements for the camera in my cell phone. They were meant to be lenses that could be used for other functions. And I think that they look kind of cool. And there's probably some project I might be able to use them. And they're going to end up with the camera in the optics drawer. And maybe sometime in the future, I'll see if I can find a 12 megapixel camera. One of the things I did find out was that the software that's available for a cell phone to be able to turn it into a webcam is all pretty much trash. Even if you pay for it, it's trash. So using a cell phone as a device to capture the output from this is probably not a good idea. So the new camera I get, the 12 megapixel camera, is going to have an SD slot in it and an HDMI slot in it. That way I'll be able to capture the video and view it directly, or put it onto a chip and bypass the whole phone and USB to OTG on-the-go adapter that's needed. I learned a lot from this, and I had fun making the video. I hope you enjoyed it and possibly learned something from it. If you like this video, then please click on the like button. Leave any questions or feedback in the comment section below. And can you give this geek a hand? Would you subscribe to my channel? I'd really appreciate it. Now, take a little time off and go build something.